Hello, we are working on floral field needle felt landscape painting. I always like to preface this by saying that my dogs are always with me in the background. So my apologies ahead of time if you hear a barking dog. What I'm going to do today is treat it as a beginner class. And I like to do that because being able to treat it as a beginner class, then we'll go over exactly what we need for information. So the reference photo that we're using is the reference photo that's right here. The first thing I like to do is set up my foam block. So I have just white felt. This is actually just cheap white thin felt, and I like to double it up. So I'm just going to kind of roll it out and then roll it back, and I'm just going to cut it. Now I'm using an 8x10 foam block, and you could use a smaller one. You can make this as big as you want. I'm going to turn this into a square. And what I'm going to do is, first of all, pin it down. So I've got some pins on the outside of my foam block. I'm just going to pin it down so it's nice and taut, nice and tight on each side. And then make sure each one is down. So let's make this 6x6. And I'm going to kind of use some tape to kind of figure it out. But this way we can, what I like to do is try to figure out a size at some point, because then I will be able to frame it properly, because I have done too many of these where it is not the right size for a frame. So that part kind of drives me crazy. So I'm going to try to work within this block. Okay? So let's see. Now I say that try because what ends up happening is that the felt goes across. But at least I'll have this framework of this 6x6. Now I have different colors with me. So for this particular one, what we're going to do is first of all say, where is the horizon line? And that's what we want to do. So it's a very free form landscape. So we've got the horizon line that's about maybe 2/3 down. Okay, you don't want it to be in half. And I'm just going to kind of go like that. So that's going to be my horizon. Our trees are going to kind of go into this area. And of course, our sun will be like this. So we're going to try to follow this whole kind of template, if you will. Okay. Now, all that being said, we're probably going to go on top of one another. So let's see what we've got for colors. So the first thing I'm going to, I have some different colors. I have some turquoise. Of course, I have yellow for the sun. And I'm going to also use white. So let's talk about just the colors we need for the actual sky. I've got my dark blue and white and turquoise, and that's what's going to make my sky. And then I have this bag here that I did not open yet. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is use my light blue here, and I'm going to pull it apart as much as I can. Whoops, there's a little bit of different color stuck in there. Pull it apart so it's kind of like, it's not a clump, is what I want to say. And I'm just going to place it down in my sky area. And again here. So it might cover the sun, but that's fine if it covers the sun. And then I'm going to take my turquoise color and do the same thing on top of that. Now, what you could also do is you could take the dark blue and the light blue, and in your hands you could blend them together. So I'm just going to kind of put those one on top of each other. I'm going to take one of my needles. Please be careful with these needles because they are very, very sharp. I never wear the little leather the little leather finger guards, but it is strongly recommended that people do. And I'm just going to stab through all of this area. Again, I'm going to add some more, little bit of another clump here, stab through, and I'm trying to make sure that I have that, the corner. So I could just kind of put a pin here. I'll put a pin in each corner so I kind of know where I am. I'll put another pin up here. Okay. So I'm just going to stab through each one. Now, what we're doing here is creating that sky that's multicolored. And when I work on a needle felted painting, I treat it like it's a painting, that I'm using the felt or the wool as I would use paint. So, and by doing so, I'm mixing the colors. I'm going from back to front. I'm not just placing like a clump of like a solid color of blue, but rather mixing them as they're either on the like on the actual canvas, if you will. We'll call it the canvas. And the angle in which you hold your needle also determines what things are going to start to look like too. You know, I'm not really a fan of this multi-needle tool. I don't know why. I feel like it just gets very loose. I'll put some light blue here. And then we're going to add some white on top of this. And that'll kind of simulate some clouds. What I also always find is that things start to look really bad before they look better. Or start to look good. So, which any type of, I think any type of creative project or creative process kind of lends itself to that stage, that kind of in between. All right, so now we've got kind of a bald spot here and here, and I want to make sure that I add some more blue on top of it again. So I'm just going to kind of wisp it in there. You can always kind of snip what you don't need. And this is still kind of like a little poofy. Let's put some more right there. Another clump here. Now, if I go on an angle for these, it's going to make some of these colors actually kind of pop out in a different way. So we just basically want to just kind of work on this sky. Adding different shades of blue. And I think I had another color of blue. No, that's too purple. It's not the one I want. And we're going to add some white on top next, because I really kind of want that white. Now, inside this part here is going to be bright yellow, because that's our sun. And then here is going to be some greens. We're going to turn them into trees. And as we move down, we'll go into the greens for the landscape. So let's just put a little bit of this wispiness here. And by wispy, I say really kind of like spread it out. And what I like to do sometimes is take a couple of needles, here's the other one, hold them together. Even maybe like a few. I find this actually works better than the one that the holder for it. One of these is just not working properly. It was that one. And some of my trees are going to go above, they're going to overlap here. So let's put the sun behind here, and then we'll go with the trees, because some of the trees are going to have to kind of go on top of that, right? So this one, I am going to clump it together. Is this the color I want? Maybe I want this golden color instead. Yeah, I think I do. Let's clump it together, clump it like this, so that we can get it into that little half circle. Because we want this to be completely solid for our sun. And as you go around to create that roundness, I just like to kind of go on an angle and then really just kind of pat it down. Now, once the colors are all laid out, I also like to just kind of let them sit, and then I'll go back and kind of tweak what's there. But I kind of want to get a basic framework here of what we need. So there's my sun. I'm going to work on this section next with some greens. And I'm going to use green and gray. There's my green. And also this color green. So the first thing I'm going to put down is this color. And I'm going to kind of treat it as a tree, if that makes sense. I'm going to mix it with this one. So let's mix it with this. I'm going to take these two colors, this dark green and this kind of lime green, pull it together in my hands. And then kind of form it into a little bit of a tree. So we're going to start with this one. Now you can kind of get as dimensional, I don't want to say 2D or 3D, but as dimensional as you would like. So there's my little tree. Let's do that again. This one and this one. Kind of pull it together. Mix it. It's like a mixing thing. I just mix it with my hand. Some people use a carding brush. Some people use a dog brush, actually. That even works. That works pretty good. I'm going to put another clump here. Kind of going in, you know, pine tree, shrubbery type form. And the exact colors that I'm using really do not make one bit of a difference. Please feel free to use a color that you like, a color that you want to use. I think for this I would probably stay away from Christmas green and go with like a darker green. And then here I'm going to kind of put this up here. And I'm going to lay that light green on top of it. Again here. And move along kind of this horizon line where the sun meets the sky. Where the sky meets the land. Now you could tone down a green by using a gray. I'm going to put a little bit of this darker green on top of this. Now, just like I kind of went on an angle around the sun, I want to do the same thing around these trees. And leave a little bit here. Now, So this could easily be framed like a 5x5. I mean, easily go into a 6x6 frame. And that, I mean, obviously it depends on whether or not you want to actually frame it. Here's a little bit of a lighter green, and I'm going to pull this across the bottom. And then inside this section here, I'm going to mix a little bit of green with some brown. I don't know why there's pink in there. Let's get that out of there. Kind of stick that underneath the sun. Add some little bit of a gray. Kind of tone down that green. Just like how we added the white on the sky. Use some multiple needles at one time. Don't like that one. That one is kind of, I don't know what's wrong with that one. I tend to go with the smaller needle. I want to put a little bit of green so it's kind of in front of the sun right here. Kind of like overlapping a little bit. Right there. I'm going to cut a little bit of this off. Now, you could always just go right over something that you've added. A color that you've added. So you don't have to worry about, oh, I just put something there and I don't really like that there. You can always go over it. Now, as we move down into this, and this is still kind of poofy, but as we move, and we'll take care of that by stabbing to make sure everything gets smoothed out. Or becomes smoother, I should say. As we poke down. I see a bald spot up here, so I'm just going to add a little bit of this. And again, I'm just trying to think about what a shrub would look like or what a tree would look like in like the skyline like this and exactly what that would be like. So that's what we wanted to actually kind of put in some different colors, maybe to accent what's behind here. So I'm putting this darker blue behind it and kind of going on a little bit of an angle so that kind of pops. And pick it up every once in a while and see, put it like, hold it up and take a look to see what it looks like a few inches away. What were the colors under the sun? The colors under the sun were this green color, like a forest green, and, well, forest green, emerald, I'm going to say emerald. This lime green, and then I added a little bit of gray. So that's kind of under the sun there. And as we move into the bottom section here, we're going to work on the green as a background for the land, and then we'll add the flowers on top of it. So what we want to do is, and I'm going to do some greens and some yellows as we move into the land. So I've got this yellow color, and I still am going to work with this little bit of a green. Plus I have this one. So, but I like this one better. So let's move on. Let's use this color right here as my base for the green, for the land. And we'll add some brown as we move down. So the land is similar to the sky, where we put down the colors. add a clump of a reddish brown in this area here. Right here. A little bit of white right here underneath there. And again, you want it to kind of be like organic looking shapes. Did I already say that? Organic looking shapes. Like, you don't want it to be something too straight. It's kind of a hill coming down. We've got a little bit of gray underneath it, right in here. And then along the bottom, we've got a darker color. I'm going to go with this really chocolate brown here and mix it with this green right here. Kind of clump it together there. It's not really clumping like I wanted to, by the way. Now, this is at the stage where I say to myself, oh no, this looks terrible. And I usually say that to myself at this point and then say, how am I going to bring myself back from this one? But think about it as that we're laying out our foundation of color. So let's put some white in here. I'm going to kind of clump that together right there. So it's a thin or a thick line. And now, once the colors are all down like this, I kind of think of it as almost like a sculpting thing. Now it's like you're playing around with what is there for what the colors that you have. Put some more right here. Add some more green in here. Now you could make a color also. You could also make a green color by mixing yellow and blue. Or you can make orange. So whatever colors are made with, however a color is made, whether it's yellow and red, make orange, that type of thing. Same thing applies to the wool. We don't need that blue right there. I want this bottom section right here to be much darker than the rest. Still have a lot of bald spots going on. So I want to come back in here and put some lime green and some of this yellow, but not too much of it. And I'm happy actually that I chose the golden yellow for the sun versus this bright yellow, because I think it gives it a nice contrast. And even when I look at my sky, I do think that maybe I need to have some more white, especially over in this section here. Add some more green into here. Kind of pull it apart a little bit. I'm going to put a little bit of yellow underneath that white right there. a wisp of this green right here. To add some of this. This looks like it's too red to me in a way. So I'm going to add a little bit of this lighter brown kind of like on top of it to change the color a little bit. And then even kind of in this corner here, I'm going to bring in some brown. I feel like it's too much. And I really love to always add gray to things, so because I think gray tones things down a lot. Put some gray in here. I'm going to use some different needles together to just kind of now kind of make sure everything is poked, is stabbed down, everything is secure before we move on to adding anything else. Plus, we want to make sure that we can get a difference, kind of define that horizon line right there, and I'll show you what we're going to do for that. And sometimes you'll see little tiny dots as the needle was stabbed into it. I'm just going to kind of smooth it out with my hands, and then it will kind of pick it up. And when it's totally done, you can actually put parchment paper over it and use an iron. I'm going to use some white up here in this corner now that we made it up there. Again, wispy wispy, like a cloud. Just to kind of get rid of that, bright blue. And here too, a little bit more white. You don't want it to look like it's like a clump of white though on there. So as I spread it out, it kind of does what I want it to do. Kind of flick it with the needle. All right, now what is left here on that top sky? Let's take a look to see if it needs to be, and I'm pointing to these two bald spots, 1, 2, and then one here. And I'm going to take some of this turquoise color, it's like a light turquoise, and I'm going to add a little bit of that into here. Get my small needle here. And then here, I'll add more of it. Smooth it out a little bit. Do I need something behind the sun? A little bit. Maybe I need a little bit of white back there. Now I'm going on an angle to kind of tuck the white behind the sun. Flicking it out. I'm going to cut this piece off. I don't really need all that. So it's tucked behind the sun. And that'll make the sun look like it's in front of everything. So it's a little more dimensional. And then for these trees, I'm doing the same thing. I'm kind of tucking behind on a little bit of an angle. I would say like a 45-degree angle is what I'm going at. And then underneath here, the horizon line, underneath the tree line, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm also going to take this darkest brown I have and pull it as like a little teeny tiny, almost like a thread. Even that's too thick. pull, and I'm going to lay it across, and I'm going to poke it down there and stab it into that, right underneath that tree line. And you don't really see it, but you do. Does that make sense? And then the same thing here, and I'm going up like this. And that's when it becomes it starts to have everything take shape and define what is there. We need a little bit of a darker green down here. This is when you really kind of start looking around and saying, well, you know, what should be over there? I'll put this little bit of like a clump of mixture of greens here. And then go back in with that dark brown for another line. Here it is. It got away from me. Right here. Now, I don't really want to see it. So I don't want to look at this and say, oh, look at that line. Okay? So I want to be able to say, for it to actually be act like it is giving some sort of dimension. Almost like a low light. Like if you were going to highlight something, you would use white. But if you want to low light something, then you would use a darker color on the underside of it. I'm going to put a little bit of this lime green inside this little clump of a corner here because it's a little bit that was just a little bit too much down there. And now I'm going to mute it with some gray. It's getting stuck. It's taking a life of its own. And I muted that whole thing. So you do see the brown line, but you don't really see the brown line. I hope that makes sense. We've got the white line underneath it. And then we're going to put a tiny bit of this golden yellow down here. And the reason why I want to do this is not only to accent it, but to also bring my eye, or the viewer's eye, from the top to the bottom. So I'm going to pop it underneath this part right here. It's a little bit of a wisp. And that'll just kind of bring your eye from the top to the bottom and create some sort of a rhythm. And I don't like how this line looks right here, this green. So I'm going to kind of flick it apart. And we've got this section here that's got a little bit of brown. I'm going to use this color brown. I'm going to put a little bit of gray on it to mute it. So it's a wisp. I hope that's the right word that I'm using. A wisp. Get a few needles together. And then in this area here, we're going to just keep on working with our land. Need to get a little bit of a darker color there. I want this to be more of a lime color at the bottom. This lime green color here. Instead of that dark color. Not really crazy about that dark color. And just kind of pull this apart. I just mix some yellow and some lime for this one. And I think that the colors in just a basic kit are usually good to just use. Now this white line right here, we need to put something underneath it so it's not so like, you know, blaring, staring at me. See if I have that other color I wanted. Do not. He has kind of a grayish green color. A little bit. And a little bit of brown across it. Actually, let's use this lighter brown right here. Now, the other thing that I want to say is that when you're working on a needle felted piece and you're using a reference photo that is not another needle felted piece, and in this case, the reference photo that we're using is a needle felted painting. But even if you were using just a regular photograph and that was your reference photo, it's a reference photo. So keep in mind that your reference photo is really a reference photo, and you don't want to worry about it being completely exact. I'm adding some yellow on top of all of this because I just felt like it needed it. And then coming up from the bottom, I'm actually going to put in a little bit of black and see what happens. And if I don't like it, I can pull it away. But let's see what happens if I put black down here. So the other thing is that if you're using a reference photo that is a needle felted painting, it's not going to look exactly like it, even if you did it. You know, I don't think that you can ever just replicate something exactly. All right, so here's my little bit of black at the bottom. I kind of like it. I don't want it to be like, you know, blaring. Let's go through with my needles and just kind of get everything stabbed away. Now we have a little bit of a bald spot right there. And what I want to do for that is I want to add something dark in that corner. And I'm going to add a little bit of brown into that little corner there. So it's like it's between the trees. Kind of flick this away, but this is so easy to just pull off. Put a little bit more brown in here. And now just kind of take a look. Do we have enough green at the bottom? Do we have enough yellow at the bottom? Does it look enough like land as we move through here? Here's the part that I'm noticing that I really need to have a different green. This is kind of a Christmassy green. We're going to try it. I don't know if I really like it, but we'll give it a try. Maybe when it's on this and mixed in, it will actually be okay. But on its own, maybe not so much. I'm trying not to make this too overpowering as far as the green at the bottom. Now, the other thing I want to add is a little bit more brown throughout here. So I'm going to go with this darker brown and kind of add just little bits, because maybe the dirt is poking through. Now, we're working from the back to the front, so we want to make sure that we're whatever's the furthest away. So when you think about it, the sun is behind the trees and the land is behind the flowers. So that's the method that is that's happening here. I'm not going to add any more black as I go further up. As a matter of fact, I'm going to put some more brown down here because I don't want this to be too harsh. And put a little bit more brown in here. And what I try to do is try not to do, is I try not to like put stuff too much in the middle. So that's why my horizon line, I wanted it to be 2/3 of the way down versus 50%, half the way down. And then I don't want to have like, well, I mean, the sun is in the middle, but really it's probably not totally in the middle. So you want it to be more asymmetrical than symmetrical. Or it's just a preference, I guess. So I'm just poking through here just to kind of get, you know, kind of get the dimension here. So going on an angle here for this brown, I am going to add a little bit more of color here on top of this, but I'm going to move it on to this cream color here. It's actually like almost like a peach color, but when you pull it apart, it looks creamier than peach, more cream than peach. I'm going to pull it apart there, and I'm going to poke it in through, stab it through here, and lay it into this area here. So it becomes more of like a top of the hill type thing. And I'm going to do the same thing here on this back side. I mean, on this other side right here. The left. The back side, the left. Coming down kind of like, almost like through here. And then I'm going to pull in some of this light green and this yellow. Mix them together. Just with my hands. Kind of make a little bit of an upside down triangle right here and here. So pull it through so it kind of comes back down. Add some more brown over here where I kind of took it away. And then I'm going to put a little tiny bit of gray across this section here to mute it. And I'm looking at my sky and I'm wondering if my sky should be lighter in this area, because this way I just feel like it should be. So I'm going to add a little bit of this light blue here. So I guess sometimes there's a lot of going back and forth. You know, a lot of going back and saying, well, that doesn't really look that good. Let's move on to something else. Put some white back on top of that. I don't want it to be like, I don't want to see the lines of the white. I don't know if that makes sense. Let me grab these two and poke together. Oh, I like that better. Much better. And I think when it really is going to come together is when we add the flowers. I'm going to take a tiny, 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 tiny bit of white. And just like we made that brown line across the bottom, I'm going to do the same thing here underneath the sun and poke it through. So it's on an angle. I'm adding that white. And what that'll do is it'll almost kind of give it a little bit of a glow. Get rid of this part right here. So I poked it through like the underside. I just want to get one more color. Hang on one second. So now I just want to kind of smooth it out. And just poke through to make sure that everything is flat. Everything is just like there on the canvas, on the whole bit. Okay, and now the next thing we're going to do is add the flowers. Can you hear me now, Bonnie? So this part right here that comes down, I'm not really worried about it because the flowers are going to start to cover everything. So that's the other part that you've got to realize is we want to start making our flowers. And I've got some hot pink. I'm just going to take it. I'm going to kind of roll it in a little ball in between my fingers. And I'm just going to place it wherever I want it to be. So let's start with right here. And I'm just going to stab it through. They can be as small or as big as you want them to be. And then for the center, I'm going to use this golden yellow color like we had for the sun. And the same method, but of course much smaller for the middle. And if you want to just kind of make, you could also make I'm making it into a little ball. I'm actually going to snip it a little bit because it's almost like it's too big. And I'm just going to add it to my needle and just poke it through. So there's the center of my little flower. You could add different colors if you want to. I'm just going to stick with the same color flowers. I'm just going to go with these hot pink ones. Again, a little ball. And I don't want to really make them in a row. I want to make it look a little bit more, you know, like a field of flowers. Here's another one I'm going to put here. Maybe this one's a little bit smaller. And I'm going to put all my pinks down first before I start to add my yellow. I'm going to put this one right here. Now, if it's a little bit too big, you can actually, remember how we kind of went on an angle up there? You can do the same thing with the flower. It's another clump. And I'm kind of going like a zigzag. You know, like I don't want to go in a row. I don't want to go in a line. But I want to kind of make it more like a rhythm. So it's like a zigzag, you know, random in the field, random flowers. I mean, I guess tulips would grow in a row, right? Even the proximity of the flowers and what's next to each other is going to be a little bit different. And maybe this one is like right here. I'll bring another one so it is I'll bring it to over here. And I guess just using basic composition for a piece of art where you don't really want it to be like right smack in the middle. I gotta say, my colors on screen versus in person look totally different. And I feel like my sun needs to be rounded more. It looks like a cone head. I think that's better now. It was looking a little cone headish. All right, there's my other flower. And I like doing things in groups of 3 or 5, an odd number. Put this right here, this little clump of pink. And another little clump right over here. So I've got 1, 2. I guess we'll put another one down at the bottom. We need more flowers than this. Down here. Put another one that's close to this. Okay, now let's add some yellow to these. Do you think, Bonnie? I think that the dimensional part of it becomes because you when you do the angle on the sides. Plus, when you feel them, they are kind of like sticking out almost more than I want them to be. The other part is that I think that by putting this line along the bottom starts to help it. You know what I mean? So it kind of gives it the dimension from what's underneath it. And I almost want to like poke through this. Sometimes I feel like there's just never like an end. And you have to kind of stop yourself and say, enough. You know, stop. And I feel like there should be some white in there now that you're talking about that. So I'm zipping over here like a scatterbrain and gonna add a little bit of something here. I'm gonna add a little bit of white right there to kind of get that dimension a little bit more defined. It doesn't even look that dimensional on the in person that it does on screen, so that's weird, isn't it? And then this part right here on an angle. So I'm going on that 45-degree angle to kind of get that look to it. So it looks like it's like further back, and maybe you can walk through the path. Where was I? Okay, the middle of the flowers. All right, here's another little piece of yellow. Now, don't forget, you can change the size of these, you know, as you're adding the color there. It's very relaxing, though. To me, it's the most relaxing medium to use. I don't know if that says something about me, that I need to, like, I have this aggression that I need to get out of me, but it's the stabbing. The other part that fascinates me about needle felting, especially when I see the three-dimensional pieces, is, and I don't really do very much in 3D, but what fascinates me about needle felting is that how many people, not only how fast it is, this medium, like how fast people, how many people are interested in this is what I should say. But the other part that really fascinates me is how well people do. Like people, it's like all of a sudden everyone can sculpt. It's like suddenly, it's just what people are able to create is incredible. Especially when I start seeing what people create that is not even an animal, but like a person. Those are amazing to me. Like little dolls or fairy dolls or little figures. It's amazing what people create. The only 3D pieces that I've done are dogs. And I think it's because it's something that I know. You know what I mean? So it's something that I love, and I did my own dogs. Well, I did family members too, but um, I think if the subject matter is something that you like, then it makes a difference. Now, there's all that white squiggly stuff all over it, and I'm gonna tell you, for the reference photo when I did that painting, I I used, which I'll show you what I'm gonna use, but you can use just wool. That is actually not wool that I used to make that little squiggliness. Here's my yellow again. See, this one's too big, so I just kind of want to, like, kind of push it into itself. I feel like that needs to be a little bit bigger. There we go. Now, I want to add some stems. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my darkest green, that emerald color green, which I'm really not crazy about, but that's the one I'm going to use. Or you could use black for stems. And I'm going to do the same thing. Now, the stems are probably going to get hidden, but I'm going to do the same thing I did with that line. So I'm going to almost treat it like thread. And I'm going to pull it through. And then I'm just going to poke. So you're kind of going to see the stems, but kind of not. And I only want to put them in there because I feel like if not, the flowers will just kind of look like they're floating. And I don't really want to make them too straight or like, you know, in a row. So kind of like on an angle would be good. I'm going to snip this part off. Now remember, I'm working with this square, right? So whatever went past this pin, for example, all over here over is not going to really be part of my, part of what I've done. Here's my next one. Again, a little bit of a snip, but I mean, I didn't really have to because once I'm done with it, I'll just pull it off the foam and cut it out. And then this next one. I'll do this one on a little bit of an angle. Here's another one. Now notice that flower back there doesn't really need anything because we can't really see its stem. And then I wasn't gonna use what I originally used on this for that squiggly white stuff, but I think I will, because this way you'll get to see what it's like, and I'll do some also with the I'll demonstrate also what happens with using just regular wool. Snip this. See, sometimes it gets like a hollow dent. I don't like that. I feel like maybe I need another flower over here. Oh, this is too thick. Just gonna pull it through. Snip that part off. I think the only reason why I'm snipping it is because I'm using it. But if I left it, it would mean nothing. It would be fine. And I do think I need to add another flower there. Okay. All right, so there are my stems. Just want to poke down enough that they're not like, you know, blatant. But I feel like I need like one more flower up here. Maybe like right there. I'm actually going to put another one. I'm going to put another one down here. Oh, this is way too big. Snip it. Put one right there. Add some yellow. And then this last flower up here, I'll add a little bit of yellow. Now, we're going to start to work on that white squiggliness. I don't know what else to call it. An embellishment, maybe? Need another stem here. And one more stem. All right. Now, what I used for that white squiggliness was something like this. You could use, I mean, what is it called? Rack, lace, something like that. And what I do is I just pull it apart. So it's like I'm going to unthread it, basically. Like, unthread it. I'm going to unravel it. See if I can get the other end. So here's a piece. Just kind of pop it down. Here's another piece. It's like I'm almost just like letting it land wherever it would. The other thing that you could use for this, which I've used often a lot, is that you could use twine, a piece of twine. I don't know if I have that with me right now. I don't think I do, but any type of other or embroidery thread. You can use embroidery thread too. So I'm just unraveling it and then snipping it, pulling it apart. This is when you start to think, save weird stuff, you know? Oh, it's like a thread falls off a piece of clothing and you start to think to yourself, what could I do with that? A zipper fell off a sweater the other day while I was, like when I washed it, then it fell off in the washer. And I found myself saving the the zipper, like the zipper pull. And I found myself saving the zipper pull. So I have become the person that saves the crazy stuff. All right, I'm just gonna, but see how it just kind of like does its own little thing? Let's see if we can just like snip this even more. I'm just like letting it land where it wants. Now, so I'm just gonna poke it through a little bit. And then even just like this little clump right here, this does poke through. It does not stay as secure as the rest, as the wool would, but you can also add some wool on top of it. Once it's in a frame, it stays completely. It doesn't go anywhere. If you get it just in the right spot, it'll poke through. Let's go back onto this one. Here we go. So I'm just going to add a little bit here and there. I don't want to be like, you know, overdo it with this. I don't want to be like, you know, what have I done? Just so it's just enough. I like that side. I like this side. Again, it's not going to totally stay until I put a frame over it. Here's some more. Pull it apart. I like how it just lays there. I love all that white. And just poke it through. Now, when you want to pull this off, I'm not gonna pull this completely off because I'm worried about my white. What you end up doing is take the pins out. I'm gonna show you what happens here. I'm gonna take my pins out, and you want to go ever so slowly, and I just kind of like peel away. Now, there was a question in the needle felt, see how, and then it's all sticking out here. There was a question in the needle felting group about this. They said, do we cut this? I do sometimes, because sometimes it makes it too thick to go inside the frame. But you just need to pull that off like that. And I'm going to pop this back on my foam block because I am going to go back in and make sure that my white is stuck the way I want it to be, and that I don't have any bald spots. I do like to kind of put it aside for a little while and then go back, take a better look, and say, okay, well, what is better? And I'm putting these little pins in the corner so I knew, because we ended up doing this as a 6 by 6. So I'll know what kind of frame to put it in.